Morning comes softly to Aberfan. Terraced houses stand close together, smoke drifting from a few chimneys. Children pull on coats, sling satchels over their shoulders, and step into the lane. Above the village, the black outlines of the spoiled tips rest against a pale sky. It is a normal school day. Parents call goodbyes from doorways. A bus rattles past. No one expects anything unusual. The valley feels familiar, steady, and safe like it has always been. Life moves forward in small, ordinary moments. Pantglas Junior School stirs to life. Coats find their pegs. Exercise books open on desks. Pencils are sharpened. Teachers greet their classes, take the register, and set out the first tasks of the day. Children whisper, compare marbles, and smile at friends. Sums and spelling are on the board. A clock ticks steadily at the back of the room. Outside the windows, a breeze brushes the trees. It is a picture of routine and comfort, the kind of morning that blends into memory. High on the hillside sits Tip 7, a great mound of waste from the mines, dark and heavy, layered over years. To many, it is just part of the landscape. To some, it has always felt uneasy, resting where water rises from the ground. On damp days, a sheen shows on the slope. Tracks of wet spoil mark the face. From the classrooms below, the tip looks distant and still. But up close, the ground tells another story, soft in places, and always quietly on the move. Under the tip, springs flow through porous layers, pooling and seeping. The waste piled above is loose, full of tiny spaces where water can gather. Rain and groundwater have nowhere sure to go. Slowly, the material soaks, grows heavier, and begins to behave less like rock and more like thick liquid. There are signs that the hillside needs careful watching and strong drains. Yet on this morning, no one below can see the hidden paths of water. The danger is out of sight, and time is running short. Sometime after 9 o'clock, the slope shifts. At first, the movements are small settling. A faint slump, cracks that open like thin black lines. Birds lift suddenly from the grass. A low sound rolls across the hillside, not quite thunder, not quite wind. The ground releases a long breath. What begins as a sag turns into a slide. Material at the surface starts to move, and then the mass behind it follows. The tip is no longer a hill. It is becoming a wave. There is no single shout or alarm loud enough to stop what follows. The face of Tip 7 surges forward. Slurry black, heavy, and fast gathers speed down the slope. Fences vanish. Trees bend and are swallowed. The sound deepens into a roar, carried on the air to the village. In seconds, the wave turns corners, leaps, ditches, and heads straight for the cluster of streets and the school. No one can outrun it. No wall can truly hold it. The valley, for a moment, is all motion. The slurry hits the school without warning. Windows burst inward. Brick and glass give way. Classrooms that were quiet a heartbeat ago fill with darkness and mud. Floors are driven up, desks thrown aside, partitions crushed. Outside, a cloud of dust rises. Then the black mass settles into rooms and corridors, blocking doors, filling space that should never have been filled. It happens too fast to understand while it is happening. Then there is a terrible stillness, broken only by shouts from the lane. The wave does not spare the houses. It sweeps along walls, pours into parlors, and leaves doorways choked. People stumble out into the lane, dazed, trying to make sense of the ruin. A mother calls a child's name. A neighbor pulls at a buried gate. The air smells of damp earth and broken timbers. Word spreads in seconds. The school has been hit. Feet pound the streets toward the noise. The village, so quiet at dawn, is now a scene of confusion and desperate movement. Rescue begins with whoever is nearest. Men and women climb onto the wreckage and start to dig first with hands, then with shovels, anything that can scrape and lift. Firefighters arrive. Miners arrive. Police, doctors, and volunteers come from miles around. People form lines to pass buckets, timbers, and stones. A cry goes up when a voice is heard. The work is careful and frantic at once, knowing that what saves can also harm. Mud sticks to clothes and faces. Time stretches, and still they dig. A shout cuts through the noise. Quiet. Everyone freezes. Ears strained for any sound from beneath a tap. A breath, a faint call. In that silence, hope and fear hold their breath together. Then the digging begins again. Slower, measured, guided by where the next chance might be. The cycles repeat. Dig, listen, dig, listen. The village becomes a single body working in rhythm. No one counts minutes anymore. They count rescues, and, when they must, they count losses. Every second is heavy with meaning. Survivors are carried carefully to waiting vehicles and makeshift aid posts. Nurses wrap blankets around shivering shoulders. Doctors move quickly, checking airways, settling breathing, treating shock and injury. Volunteers bring flasks of tea and stacks of towels. Names are written, checked, and called. Parents search the lists, search faces, search any scrap of information. People who have never met hold hands. Strangers become family. Through it all, the rescuers go back to the piles again and again, because there might be one more voice. As the hours pass, the shape of what has happened becomes clear. The numbers are not just numbers. They are children, teachers, neighbors, friends. The village that woke to an ordinary day now bears a grief beyond measure. At the cemetery, white arches will one day mark small resting places. Flowers will gather there, and names will be spoken softly. For the families, time will split into before and after. For the country, Aberfan will become a word that means sorrow and a responsibility to do better. In the months that follow, an inquiry is held. 144 people died in the Aberfan disaster, 116 children and 28 adults. Maps of the hillside are unrolled. Cross-sections show springs and layers of spoil. Witnesses speak about warnings and worries, about ground that moved and drains that failed, about decisions that should have been different. The National Coal Board is condemned for its part in what happened. The report is careful, and it is clear. This was not a mystery of nature alone. It was a human failure of judgment, oversight, and care for a community living beneath a tip. Work begins to change the land. Dangerous tips are removed or reshaped. Drainage is cut deep to carry water away. New rules and laws are written to make sure tips are managed with knowledge and caution. Engineers measure, monitor, and plan with the village in mind. The hillside looks different when the machines leave. Less dramatic, perhaps, but safer. What cannot be restored is restored as best it can be. Trust, attention, and a promise not to forget. Where the school once stood, a memorial garden now invites quiet steps. Paths curve between lawns and trees. Flowers mark the seasons. People come to reflect, to read the names, to remember the voices that once filled those classrooms. Each year, the village gathers. Silence, music, and prayer carry love across time. Aberfan's story is held by many hands, now families, neighbors, and strangers who learned its lessons. We finish by saying what the garden says without words. We remember and we keep them close. Please subscribe to Discovering Disasters for the next true story. Thank you for your time.